Hey guys, how's it going? It is the first review, not the final, but the first review on the Leapers 3x12x40 Varmint Predator Hunting Scope. It is a milled dot rectal in this thing, also illuminates. The buttons at the back will switch you to different dimmer modes, as well as red and green. But this thing has a added kicker bonus. It has 36 colors. So you can go through 36 variants of colors for your rectal viewing. So I guess if you're colorblind, you can find a color that actually suits you too. So that's a good thing. Anyways, I had ordered this in from D&L Airguns out west. Now, of course, Canadian. It was $169.99 plus tax and shipping. So not exactly cheap, but not overly expensive. And did come with the scope rings as well. Now, these are also locking and resetting adjustable turrets on this. So you just have to use the bottom collar. Requires no tools. You can tighten it down and they don't move. Counterclockwise, couple of turns, unlocks, and you can do your setup or redial in for whatever you need, and then just relock them in place afterwards. Done a little testing too. If you do forget to lock it, don't worry, it's going to keep its setting. But if you really want to make sure, for sure, then just twist the collar. You don't have to reef it either. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to lock those turrets solid. And then you have an Allen key that goes in the top. You loosen that off a couple of turns, pop the cap up, and just rotate it to re-zero the scope once you have your alignment done with your choice of pellet or bullet. Because this scope will work on regular firearms, PAL-rated air guns, and non-PAL. This is my Crosman CF11 gun. The scope that came with it was absolutely horrifying as far as nitro or Springer use goes. Very garbagey scope, but does actually work quite beautifully and perfect on my Crosman 1322. So the scope that came with the gun is definitely great for pump-ups and CO2 guns, just not suitable for Springers and nitro, which makes you wonder why Crosman would do that. But hey, that's Crosman for you. So anyway, the scope goes from as little as 5 yards to infinity. And of course, it's an adjustable AO on this scope as well. Now your battery goes right here. They do supply you 2 batteries, and you only need one at a time. You do have the flip-up front and rear eyepieces. They're also grooved, by the way. So if you look at the little groove tracks, you've got the same sort of thing going on the cap. So you can precisely replace it right back in. And of course, they do give you lots of distance too to be able to still adjust your eyepiece if you need to. The front adjustable AO ring is very, very tight on this scope, which is what you want, because you don't want that falling out on you. So it is not going to be a problem. The included rings have wide bands and 4 screws. So when you're tightening this down, you want to keep your pressure so that you have an equal amount of space as possible of gap between each side of each ring when you're clamping down the scope. And don't over tighten the things, because otherwise you can crush the tubing. So keep that in mind. Do not over tighten. You do need to snug them up and make sure all 4 screws are definitely snug. Fire the gun off for about 50 rounds and then recheck and make sure none of them have worked loose. Check them time to time. It's the normal maintenance thing anyways. So, but I've got them snug enough that they should be fine now. Now, these have the finger tightening system. Do not rely on that, even with a Picatinny or Weaver rail system like this is, because you can still get scope creep just by finger tightening these down. Like, you can go, yeah, all you want. It's still not gonna be tight enough. Trust me. There's recoil to nitros and Springers. Okay. So there's 2 Allen keys actually that come with this, the big one and a smaller one. The smaller one's actually for putting your rings together. However, there's a hole on either side of these finger tighteners. Just stick the Allen key in whichever hole works the best for you on each one, and just give it some extra torque pressure. Like, we're not talking snug, we're talking slightly beyond snug is what you need to do. I was having a heck of a time getting this thing to dial in, and that's when I realized, wait a minute, what if I snug these up a bit more? I mean, because I did them by hand originally, because they're designed to go by hand, right? And I started thinking, there is a bit of forward and backward play, even in this system. Let's just reef them tight, and see what happens. So I did. I reefed on each one of them, and I, tightened them up really good past the snug point. And the scope doesn't move. I was able to finish dialing in the scope. I've put over 300 rounds in it since, and it has not budged. So it is great. So remember that no matter what kind of clamping system to your Picatinny or Weaver rail you have, with a scope, you really got to make sure those suckers are on there really snug. Otherwise, it can creep and go back and forth on you. It can even do a side impact on you. I mean, seriously, the pellets were all over the place, and it frustrated me. It's like, even my wife came out, and she's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, frustrated, right? Because I can't get the thing going, right? So I thought about it. All right. And then about 10 shots after that, I'm dialed in, and I'm fine. And it's like, yes. So now I learned something new about this kind of a clamp system, obviously. I'm used to scope rail rings that you always would use just an Allen key for. I've never played with this style. Leapers also has another style, and I'm sure other companies do too, that are not just like this, but I've seen one where it's basically a fold lock quick release system. Those are going to have to be on there really tight too. And so it's going to be hard to remove as well. But if you don't have them tight, it's going to creep on one of these guns. Now, you would never experience creepage on finger tight, just going by your fingers as tight as you can, on a CO2 gun, a PCP, or even a pump-up gun. Because those guns have, like, no recoil, no brrr vibrations, right? But Springers and Nitros do, so do keep that in mind. Now, the scope. For $170 Canadian, this is a really, really, really good scope. I've had Leaper scopes in the past. I've had a Bug Buster and a couple others. Never had anything with, well, they didn't have this whole color technology thing then. We had basically red or green, and that was it, right? And it is a milled dot rectal as well, which is nice. So, if you're changing to a different pellet that you don't have to change this on, but you might have to move the mill dot one place or another, you can actually do that and not have to worry about messing with your settings. But once you get your settings in, I would definitely advise loosening the caps and putting them back to the 0 point. This way you know for sure that your scope is in dead alignment with a particular pellet at a particular range, right? And then this way, it's just a matter of if you do have to change any clicks because you want to try a different pellet that, it's going to take a bit more to dial it in, you could do that, no problem. Or if you got to change for distance or wind type of thing. I mean, that's another thing, right? Wind picks up sideways. That can make your pellet go off, even on a PAL gun. So you want to be able to recalibrate for that. You can either recalibrate the settings or figure out which mill dot's going to do the job for you. To still keep you on target so you can still get your bullseye. So definitely a great scope, definitely worth every single penny of that money. I don't know what Leaper scopes sell for in the States, but in Canada, like I said, I paid $169.99. I got it from D&L Airguns. And they have a good selection of Leaper scopes. I'm actually on their website right now. Their cheapest scope, which will still work great for a nitro gun, or a Springer, is actually a 4x32 full size with adjustable optical mill dot scope. No illumination, mind you, but it's only $99. Currently sold out though. But they do have other scopes, $150, $170, $180, $200 and change. Depends on what you're going after. Now I did order another rifle in that for now I'm going to use a Sun Optics scope on it, but eventually I'll probably end up getting a Leaper scope for it. I would love to be able to put Leaper scopes on all my guns because I love Leaper scopes. I've never ever experienced a problem or an issue with a Leaper scope before, so I definitely highly recommend them. Now, nothing in life is perfect, okay? So I can't say 5, but I can definitely say with this scope, it is definitely a good solid 4 3/4 out of 5. It has the value for the money. It's a nice big scope. I like the dust caps covers, they work great. The 36 color thing, I mean, I personally don't use illuminated rectals, but you know, I'll try it out and see if I can actually make use of them. Maybe some evening shooting might be where I'd want them, or a lower light situation, who knows. But I'll give them a shot and see what I think of them in the end, because there will be a final review coming, and I would like to make part of that final review my experience with the multicolors, as well as just the standard red and green that we get. And of course, all your levels are just a matter of click, click, click to scroll through the different levels, including your off position is going to be based on clicks. Okay, there. I have currently the zoom set to 10 times zoom, and we are at about roughly, I'd say about 12 yards setting, give or take. There's a big gap between the 10 and the 20, so where it's at, I'm guessing we're at about 12 yards, which is about what I paced out from my target anyhow. And I'd set this scope up to run RWS Super Point 22 caliber pellets with this gun. And like I said, I've got everything zeroed, so I'm all good. And it's great. It's a really nice scope, and it really makes a difference having a good quality scope. And you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a scope to get a really good quality scope for any gun. It's just that some people think that the more you pay, the better you get, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just a matter of that's the way they are. But anyway, so there you have it, the Leapers 3x12x40. Great scope. I believe it's 40. Yeah, 40. I got to remember that because it's 42, 40. But definitely a really good buy. Highly recommend it. Check one out yourself. Now, this does come only with the Picatinny rail mounts. If you need this scope to go on to a dovetail mount, you will have to buy new rings. And of course, in Canada, you can certainly get new rings at any place that sells gun stuff. You can go to DNL. You can go to another company I deal with actually is called Airgun Source Canada. They're an awesome company, great selection of stuff. Mind you, I don't think they carry Leaper stuff though. But you don't have to have particularly a brand name attached to your rings, but you just need good rings. Where are we? Flashlight scope mounts. They have Diana, they've got FX No Limit, they've got Hawk, they've got quite a number of different brands of different types of scope rings. But these are kind of like very similar actually to your BKL high risers, because you need something to get over top of everything, right? So these are a taller profile ring. But even a cheap set, they do carry cheap cheap rings, as well as some very expensive ring sets. Depends on what you want to spend and what kind of quality grade you're after as well. As far as scopes though, they do carry brands like MTC, AX, Vantage, Air Max, Element Nexus, Air, I think we said Air Max, few other brands. Okay, they don't carry Leapers though, which is fine. But if you are looking at Leaper scopes and you're in Canada, I would probably recommend going to DNL Air Guns for Leapers. Now at DNL, of course, they also carry a variety of other brands of scopes and scope rings and all that other jazz too, and they have a very vast selection of air guns and so on and so on. And of course, so does airgunsource.ca. Recently, I ordered a new gun from airguns.ca, airgunsource.ca, as well as some other goodies. They'll be in soon. But this scope I definitely would recommend, whether you're going to use the light up rectal or not. It is a really fantastic scope for the money. So I would say it's definitely a win-win. Anyways, do stay tuned though for a future long-term review on this scope, because we do have to put it through its paces. But it has had about 300 rounds plus through it already, where it's had to put up with the gun, and so far it's keeping it zero without any issues whatsoever. So that's definitely a really good starting point, and I'll check out the illumination and see what I really think of that and how well it works, or maybe doesn't work so great. I don't know, but it's not something I generally would use, but I'll try it anyways because we need to know if it's any good. So thanks for watching, and catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.